here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line, none other than the head coach of Texas A&M football, Jimbo Fisher. How you doing, Coach?
Doing well, Rich. How you doing, buddy?
Hanging in there. Thanks very much. What's your world like these days?
Crazy. We're back. We just finished up spring ball. We're into the spring recruiting world and exit meetings and talking with our players before they leave for the semester, things we need to do in the summer, and just how they did in the spring, and kind of keeping that up, and then getting on the recruiting trail.
Jimbo Fisher here on the Rich Eisen Show, back here on our program. So, have you had your spring game? Is that all done?
We had it too. We had it on April 9th. We did ours a little bit earlier.
All right. What was your pro day like then?
It was very good. We had a lot of interest. All the team. We had every team represented here. Some head coaches here, and should have quite a few number of guys that go in the draft. I'm very happy for them next week.
Let's pound a table for them. Who do you got? Who do you think is going to make a great professional, Jimbo Fisher?
I think Kenyon Green right off the bat. I think the offensive lineman. I think Kenyon has been a 3-year starter. I mean, he's a tremendous player who I just think has all the intangibles physically, but mentally and psychologically. He's an old school player. How he practices, how he works, and I think he'll go in the first round. I really do. I think he has a chance to play a long time, and he deserves it. I mean, he has been an outstanding player for us off the bat. DeMarvin Leal is another one who I think can go in the first round. If not, I think he'll definitely go in the second for sure. I mean, that depends. But he's a tackle, defensive end, 290-pound guy that can run, play, unbelievably productive for us, was a tremendous player. Basically, he started for 2.5 years. He started playing a lot in the middle of his freshman year, but both of them were 3 years and out. Both juniors that were in the same class were very highly ranked guys that I think are there. Michael Clemens, a big defensive end, who I think has a chance to be, who's really moving up the boards. He's long, physical, can play on the edge, man, plays with a motor, been a tremendous guy for us. Isaiah Spiller, our tailback, 3 years, basically 1,000 yards every year, over 3,000 yards in his career. Great out of the backfield, catching the ball, pass blocker, can run inside or out. I think has a chance to be a really, really outstanding player in that regard. I think Aaron Hansford's a linebacker who we moved from an offensive tight end guy to it was really an athletic kind of a push receiver tight end that's really grown into a 240-pound guy that can play inside or outside and rush, can cover. Athletic. Leon O'Neal's a safety who's played here for 4 years, started base for 2.5 years. It's a really good player for us. Jalen Wiedemeyer, tight end, I think is an outstanding guy that big and long and has had 3 productive years. Was a runner-up for the Mackey a couple years. So I mean that group right there, just from that group right there, I think you're going to get quite a few guys and have a chance to have really good pros.
Yeah, I got to tell you, out of everybody that you just mentioned, when I saw him at the Combine, Isaiah Spiller looked terrific. He really did,
Yeah, he does. Isaiah looks good. He produces. He's athletic. He's a team guy. He can do all the facets, and, I think can be a really good pro.
No, I mean, because you could see, how running backs and how wide receivers these days in the NFL are having more of an impact immediately. I mean, right after they come off of campus. Why would you, from your level, looking at the NFL, think that this is more of an advent these days?
Well, I think the ability up front. I think the game, because there is more athleticism and ability, and it's more in space. I think when you're talking about the guys who put their hand in the dirt, that's what I still think Kenyon, DeMarvin, and Michael will all be outstanding guys in that group. But I think just from the physical standpoint, I think you're and these guys are coming out early sometimes as 20-year-old guys, and all of a sudden you're playing against a 27-year-old grown man up front. I think there's a big physical adjustment that can happen. But I think those guys will all make it very clearly. But I think the skill guys, it's more about their skill, their speed, their athleticism than it is sometimes the power, and it's all combined. But I think it's that way in college too. When you go from high school to pro, the skill guys seem to have an easier jump than the guys who put their hand in the dirt, just from the physical standpoint of the game.
Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M head football coach here on the Rich Eisen Show. All right, let's jump into the world of the NIL, Coach, because I know you've been asked quite a bit about it. And when your recruiting class came out, there was a big hullabaloo, and you even called out a blogger, I think, for throwing out there what your school may or may not be doing on this front. What is your school's approach to NIL?
Jimbo Fisher. There are NILs here, but it's probably less than most schools across the board. Where there is not. The reason I was saying, they were saying it's the only reason they came, which is not true. And you can look. We have state laws. We're not allowed to do that. And plus, the results of who has them are out there. So we're way below everybody else and where they're at. And people just couldn't, in my opinion, just don't understand and appreciate how good Texas A&M is and what we're building. And it was a shock to them that we have a number 1 class. But we've never, since we've been here, been less than 6 in the country. We've always been in the top 6 classes in the country since we've been here. When I was at Florida State, we had multiple number 1 classes, and we've always been able to recruit well. And I think, is NIL a part of our world? Is it a problem in recruiting? It can be. The portal, all that's going to be a problem. But people were insinuating that's the only reason we got ours. That's what I said. That was the only issue I had with that whole thing, is that is not it. And those are facts that are on the record that you can look up.
So when you say problems, what are the problems that you can identify?
I think if people do get into trying to buy players, if trying to people that are messing with other guys' players in the portal, that it's amazing how some of these guys in the portal, the day they get out, which they can't have contact with an outside school, but the day they get out of the portal, they've already signed with another school. How does that happen? So, I think there's tampering with players. I think all those things that go on, and I think people enticed with NILs and the transfer, and it's like, and that's the problem in college sports, is you don't want to happen. You do not want that to happen. I'm a big part. I'm a true advocate of that, 1,000%.
So you don't want what to happen? The ability to just transfer?
No, the ability to try to buy players out of the portal. And entice players to come to your school for money.
We had Mac Brown of North Carolina, your colleague at North Carolina, Jimbo, on the show a couple weeks ago. He said he's had players walk into his office with a dollar amount and say, "This is what I have from another school. If you match it, I'll come here." Has that happened to you? No,
I've never had that happen. I haven't had that happen here. We've only had 2 transfer guys in 2 years, a left tackle and Max Johnson, the quarterback. The only 2 transfers we've had since this is open. And we've had a few guys leave, but not many. And then I haven't never experienced what Max said he did, or where a guy walks in and says, does that surprise me? No. Do I think that goes on? I definitely do.
So then, your colleague at Clemson, Dabo Swinney, quoted on ESPN saying, quote, "I think there's going to be a complete blow-up and restructuring of all college athletics, especially football, and there needs to be." Do you agree with that, Jimbo Fisher?
There has to be some adjustments, and the rules have to be, because you have to have the same rules. Every state has different rules.
Mm-hmm.
By their whatever that is, because I think, most time when you make an adjustment on something, it's ready, aim, shoot. Well, everybody went ready, shoot, aim on this. And so each state started scrambling to make sure their schools weren't left behind, and your rules are not the same across the board. And that can't be good for a sport that, it's like every NFL team had a different way to sign free agents or to draft or to do anything else. That wouldn't work in the NFL, so why would that work in college?
Yeah, so what's the answer? I mean, who would be the body to do that, right? Because you've said it. I mean, I had Nick Saban on last week. He's similar. He's like, it seems everybody, Lane Kiffin, I've had, these are colleagues in the SEC. Everybody wants some sort of level playing field where everybody knows what can be done and what cannot be done. And who can do that, Jimbo Fisher?
That's the question, Rich. I don't know. And it's because it's in the court systems. When you get into the court systems, because now you're talking about lawsuits and what can and cannot be done, I don't know the law well enough to know that.
Mm.
I think when you get to that part of it, I think that's where it really complicates it, because listen, do I think kids need a little something? Yes, they should get some. There's no doubt. But how it gets controlled, or what it is, or when it is, or why it is, I'm not smart enough to figure it out, because now you're getting into antitrust laws. Into, do you have unions? Do you not have unions? I mean, I'm just listening to what people say and things we've.
No, I think you.
I don't know the answer.
I think you're on it. That is the ultimate, coach. Like, if you are going to have players compensated, right? Although not supposedly for their work, supposedly for their name, image, and likeness that comes from their work.
Mm-hmm.
Then you need to sort of codify what the rules are, and what that would lead to players having a union. They'd have to, certainly if you're going to sign them to contracts, right? I mean, like, that's the way it would literally professionalize the sport.
I agree, that's why I don't understand, and I'm not smart enough to figure out how does that apply to each individual school by the state laws in which they're in, and is there state schools, there's private schools, so I mean, how do you unify that? I'm not smart enough to understand or have enough law background to ever figure that out. Maybe you do, or know somebody that does.
I've got an honorary sports law degree that was never, by the way, that was never signed by the person who gave it to me. So
I'm with you. But that's a great question, Rich. I mean, I'm all for who has that suggestion and who has the answer. I mean, and it's easy for us to all go out here and complain. It's like everything. Everybody knows what the problems are, but how to solve them. And I think it's two different things. And I think that's where we have to really get down to and quit all the bickering. All right, let's figure out what we can do and what are the laws which we can abide by.
And then I guess how much, last one for you on this subject, how much are you as a head coach and then at the top of the program's flow chart read into, well, this player has that deal, that player is getting this deal? Is that part of your process of knowing?
No. We in the state of Texas, a guy can't even bring a deal to us and say, "Coach, is this a good deal or a good contract?" We're not. I mean, the only time we ever know, and I don't know, I couldn't tell you the guys on our team that have them. But they have to file them with our compliance office. That's a Texas state law.
Right.
So they can have outside agents to go get them. I mean, and a lot of it has nothing to do with that. They can go get national brands. I know, like Caleb Williams and some of those guys out in Southern California, they've gotten them off real estate companies. One of them is with Dr. Dre and Beats. I think Bryce Young at Alabama has CAA represents him. He has deals all over the country. You as a coach, you have no control of that or interaction with it. And I couldn't have told you last year who had what.
But when it comes to your mindset right there, right, when it comes in front of your consciousness, what do you think when you see other kids have those deals elsewhere? What do you think?
I mean, that's more power to them. That's the rules in which they're abiding by. I mean, and they're getting compensated for what they get compensated for. That's great for them, in my opinion. But I think, like I say, how do you regulate that, and how can it stand up for a long time, and where does it go? I don't know the answer to that. But I don't have a problem with our players getting compensated. Where does it be fair, and where does that all stop?
Okay.
And how, like you say, the biggest thing, the enticement in recruiting, the enticement in transferring, and all those things, I think that's where your problems occur.
Jimbo Fisher here on the Rich Eisen Show. How do you want to fix scheduling? Do you think that needs to be fixed too in college football?
In what way?
No, just like more uniform, right? Like where everybody, plays the same. I don't know, where everybody plays the same style.
You're where I am. I don't know either.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, same number of Division I games, yes. The same number of conference games,
yes.
Possibly, yes.
Right.
And I think your large conferences, I think that's going to be a problem going forward, because I think schedules can get tainted now. Because you got so many teams, you get overloaded at, with a strength of schedule that can happen. Mm-hmm. But I was just having a conversation with a gentleman here a minute ago.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to, and I'm strong in this because I guess I came from small college football. As a player and as a coach, I worked up through Sanford and everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And like Coach Bowden, my background is very similar to Coach Bowden. That's where I'm tied to so much, is that you're not playing FCS teams. See, I think you should play one FCS team game a year. Because if not, how do they where is their money and budget going to come from if we all take it to the top and keep all the money? Mm-hmm. How do those teams survive? And I'm saying for the betterment of football, because I came and had an opportunity. You're going to take large numbers of scholarships away from kids as opportunities to play and get in college and get a college, not just playing football, a chance to go play pro football, go play whatever it is, but also to get a college education. And if they go away and they all go to non-scholarship football and all that, then you're going to see high school kids not play football because there's not opportunities to get scholarships at all the different levels of ball in which you have. And to me, we have to feed the FCS. The FCS has to feed Division II. Division II has to help field Division III as far as a financial burden that can help take it off of them. And I think it's our duty to pass that down for the betterment of the game and stay that way. I think that's one thing that I am strong. Now, the other games, that's all have Division I games that have, and then you have do you have Power 5? Did you go all Power 5 schedule, or do you have the FBS? Where do they make their money, too? It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's a part of the game that we all want, all the big matchups where it's, Texas A&M and Alabama, Texas A&M and Florida, Texas A&M, which it doesn't bother me. But your schools that aren't in those FBS Power 5, where is their financial advantage going to come from, and how can they survive to be able to stay afloat? And I think you'll see some teams drop football if that doesn't happen. And then I think opportunities for kids, and I think it'll hurt the game of football.
If you could wave a wand, Jimbo Fisher, and have a certain number of teams part of a playoff, what number would that be?
Probably 16, 12 to 16.
I love it.
And I think you would increase players playing, not opting out of bowl games, playing for a championship. And I think it's a different deal. I think one loss, and I love how much the season means. But some teams you got young teams, and especially now with the youth that is playing in athletics, everybody is so young. Maybe those guys struggle at the beginning of the year, and all of a sudden they get hot and win 7 in a row, and they're going into the playoff just like the NFL. How much more exciting is that? People say it's not. The season's going to be that. I think you're going to have more teams involved because after sometimes the midpoint of the year, there's still only 6 or 8 teams really left for the playoff. How much exciting is that?
No question. I want to see competition, not lobbying a group of people sitting in on a hotel conference room making
I
a
agree
decision.
with you. And put it on the field. Let's find out. Now you got more kids playing. You got more teams. The excitement in college football to me grows because you got more. There's still a lot more teams with a chance. Now you got 25, 30, 40 teams that can still get in a playoff at the end of the season. The games matter. And then you go into a playoff and let's find out who can play. You and those teams that develop late. Just like, you want to peak your team, and the NFL wants to peak their team as they go in, like Belichick does. How they peak them going in. Who can manage that? It's a whole different hand. And I think your TV ratings will go up. I think everything will go up.
And then I guess then just to finish up, how would that affect the regular season, right? And I don't know if the commissioner of the SEC would want to maybe do something like that if that takes the SEC championship game out. Right?
I agree, and I think that's something that we have to work through. Where does the SEC championship game come into play, and can that be made up in compensation through the networks or anything else? Or
right.
And I understand. I'm with Greg. The SEC championship game is I've played in it many times, and it's as electric as the national championship games I've played in.
Well, for some people in the SEC, they'll tell you that is the national championship game.
Well, it has been for a while.
Coach, thanks for the time. Greatly appreciate it. Let's do this more often.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for having me, buddy.
You got it. That's Jimbo Fisher, head coach of Texas A&M Aggie football. You're on the program. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.